This is an SM Media production. Hi everyone, and welcome to the debut episode of the question session right here on SM Media. I'm Scott McPike, delighted to be your host as always. A very special show lined up. This is the debut episode. I'll just explain briefly what the show is going to be. We're going to open the floor to everyone that's asked a question via social media. I reached out the other day and asked for questions and got an amazing response as always. We're going to just basically cover a wide range of subjects. We've got a load of questions on about different subjects. So we're going to just start really now. What will happen going forward is hopefully we'll be able to get some guests on and they can obviously go back and forth with me on questions. But just a try run. I'm just going to see what it's like and see how if people enjoy it. And we'll hopefully get more episodes going forward. But we'll start with the first question here comes from John Cunningham. What do you think of the current pyramid setup in Scottish football, and should more teams be relegated and promoted throughout the leagues? I'm really enjoying the new pyramid setup. I think it's been a long time coming. I think as well, the thing that impresses me about it is there's a lot more teams like Celtic Hearts, Cove Rangers, Edinburgh City that have been able to go up the leagues and try and kind of go in with the bigger teams in the SPFL. What as well is, and this maybe is a bit disrespectful, but there's a few teams in the SPFL who've maybe been there too long and are kind of back down to the Highland League, Lowland League places, like things like that, like where they probably should be. And hopefully as well, with the addition of the West clubs and the kind of East of Scotland, South of Scotland, there's more clubs going to go up. We're going to be in for a good few years. The Lowland League's obviously got a few clubs as well who probably deserve to have their chance in the next level. But it's going to be interesting. But I'm a big fan of it, and I hope we do see a lot more promotion stories and a lot of up and downs and things like that, because it makes it more exciting. I mean, we go back to years ago when, like, say, Stirling were sitting 10th for 10 years in a row and nothing would really be. They wouldn't have a relegation. I've always said if you finish bottom of a league, you should be relegated to the level below, because you've not competed at that level very well, so you should be going to the bottom level. Different subject, Jim Parker. What's your opinion on CM Punk returning to the wrestling ring after what he says is 16 years off? I am really looking forward to CM Punk being back in a wrestling ring. I know when you're saying 16 years off, it means that he's probably not counting his WWE run in that, but the way to look at it is, does he get that reaction if he's not in the WWE? I mean, it was one of the craziest reactions I've ever seen in any sport. I don't care what anybody says. It was up there with Michael Jordan. It was Michael Jordan-esque in Chicago, as they say. Like, it was great. I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens. I know he's in a feud with Darby Allin, and we're going to see that in All Out. That'll be good. He mentioned last night in his promo and Dynamite how he's looking forward to working with likes of Jungle Boy and the Lucha Brothers. There's a lot of guys he can work with there in AEW. It's a stacked roster, and CM Punk. Hopefully, there's not a lot of ring rust. I don't imagine there will be. I think he'll be. I saw him training with Tommy End, and that's another match I'm looking forward to seeing as well. There's a lot of great matches that he can have, but I don't think there'll be much ring rust. And I think there could be several years of Punk left in the tank, and I hope we see a better. I hope we see him more happier than he was in WWE, because obviously there's a bit more creative control. A guy like CM Punk will probably be allowed to work with who he wants because he's a marquee name. And there just seems to be a bit more kind of flexibility for likes of Punk, and obviously Daniel Bryan, who I think will probably be there sooner rather than later. There'll be a lot more creative freedom for them to work with who they want. So that'll be good. I'm really looking forward to Punk, and it's a long time coming, but I'm really excited to see what comes next. Callum McClurkin, which horse are you looking forward to seeing the most when the new jump season starts in earnest? I've got two. I'm really looking forward to see how Kilcroot goes over hurdles. I'm looking forward to seeing how he adapts, given a bad ride in the champion bumper, but I think he's going to be probably a supreme horse, maybe even go further. And obviously, I'm looking forward to seeing Honeysuckle again. She's just a different level. I think she could win the next 3 champion hurdles. I think she's that good. Me and Callum have debated in the past whether Honeysuckle should go over fences. I personally think maybe she probably could go the Gold Cup route in the future. Callum's very adamant that she's better off staying over hurdles. The more I think about it, yeah, I think he's probably right. I think staying over hurdles, trying to go for that 2 or 3 in a row would be an amazing achievement. So I hope we see Honeysuckle back to her best. Still unbeaten. I hope we see Honeysuckle back to her electric best next season. Kai Skiok, do you believe the gap between the big two in Scotland and the chasing pack is starting to close over the last few seasons? Not overly. I mean, you still see the big gap Celtic Rangers have between the rest of the league. I think the likes of like Aberdeen, Hibs are bringing in better players. Like you see, like Hibs bringing in a few good players. Aberdeen, obviously, Scott Brown goes there, makes him a better team. Even if he's not the player he was 5 years ago, his leadership still makes him a better player. So I think it's tough for those teams to be competitive. I think the closest I can remember a team coming to break the Old Firm was Hearts with Burley in 2006, and that just fell off a cliff. Obviously, Burley left. There was a lot more external factors that caused that, but that's the closest I've remembered. I don't think we'll see that anytime soon with the gap in budget between Celtic, Rangers and the other teams. Again, it's up to if these clubs go in and spend a bit of money. I know the money's hard to come by. I don't know if they'll be able to, but it's good to see the league's a bit more exciting as well, because you've got the likes of Aberdeen, Hibs, Hearts, even St Johnstone obviously won 2 cups. There are teams below Celtic and Rangers who are making some noise. Do they get to that next level? I don't think so, but it's good to see them kind of compete with each other, because it's not the same as like years ago when Hearts were always going to finish third and Aberdeen have always finished second and third in the past few years. So there's a lot more excitement, so that'll be good. George Innes, name the winners of the top 4 divisions in Scotland. Premiership, I still think Rangers will have enough. I think their squad's just a bit better than Celtic's. I think Celtic have been outstanding the past few weeks. They've been scoring goals for fun. But I just think Rangers have got enough to win the league in the long-term season. Championship, Kilmarnock, I think, will be hard to beat. Inverness have made some noise, but I just think Kilmarnock have bought really well. A few really good players in there. I just think Kilmarnock will have enough. League One's probably the hardest one to predict, because there's probably 4 teams that could win it. You've got Falkirk, Cove, Queen's Park, Alloa. I think Cove, for me, I just think they've got the best team. You've got Mitchell Megginson and Ronan McAllister there. I mean, if they're scoring goals, I think any team's going to struggle against them in that league. So I've got Cove Rangers winning League One. League Two, Kelty Hearts. I think their budget's far better than everybody else's. They've got a brilliant team. Nathan Austin's there, Jamie Burjonis, Joe Cardo as well. Joe Cardo's probably one of the best pickups in the league for a long, long time. Picking him up from Partick Thistle was a great piece of business. And as well, we've got Wilson's best mate, Andy Barrowman, there as a sporting director, so they'll be sorted. But I do think, all joking aside, I do think Kelty will win that league comfortably. So Rangers, Kilmarnock, Cove and Kelty for me. Ollie Jenks, has the football bubble burst in terms of transfers? Only a few clubs can afford the top players, and we've seen a rise in players running their contracts down. Does this change the contract style in future, the new Bosman ruling perhaps? I think the bubble was always going to burst. I don't think it's burst yet, but I think we're slowly beginning to see the effects of like Brexit and obviously COVID. I don't think we'll see the effects of COVID for a good few years in terms of money. But, well, we maybe tell a lie. We have maybe seen it in Spain, but we'll come on to that later on. There's a question about that. I just think it's hard for like the top, unless you're Man City, PSG, in a normal year, Barcelona and Real Madrid, it's hard for clubs to compete for big players. I mean, we've seen with Harry Kane. Harry Kane's probably desperate to leave Tottenham, but because there's not a lot of teams that can afford that fee, and obviously Tottenham will play hardball and things like that, and Tottenham don't really want to sell, it's hard for clubs unless they're going to put in a silly offer to compete with that. So I do think we'll see effects in 2 years. I don't think we've seen it just now. There's still a lot of big deals taking place. Obviously, Lukaku to Chelsea for 100 million. That's still crazy money when you think about it. I remember when Christian Vieri signing for Inter Milan for 30 million was like the biggest deal in the world. And you go back to times like that and you think, like, that was only 20 years ago. Like, how's it changed since then? It's simple. TV money's went through the roof and have owners. Like, you've got owners of the richest clubs in the richest countries in the world, so they're going to spend money. They're going to make. I mean, Man City have spent hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds, probably into the billions now. So it's going to be interesting to see that. I think in the next few years you'll see some kind of quietness, and when it comes to that, I don't think you'll see as silly wages as you see now. I mean, I think the Messi things kind of made a lot of clubs realise you can't throw away that kind of money. Not that you're throwing away money at Messi. He's probably the best player of all time, but Barcelona have put themselves in a really bad position. So something will probably be done when it comes to contracts. I mean, I think there's even Mbappe. Mbappe's got 4 months left. He's probably going to leave maybe in a free, because I don't think Real Madrid will buy him this summer, but I think they'll sign him in a free. It just shows you how crazy the market is right now, and I don't know if it will change anytime soon. But I think once we see how the effects of Brexit work, how COVID has impacted big clubs financially, you will see a big difference in transfers. I don't think we'll go back to like 30 million for the Ballon d'Or winner. I don't think that'll happen, but I do think you'll see a bit of a sugary peg for a few years when it comes to transfer fees. So I think we might see something like the new Bosman ruling, like you can leave a year after, you can leave a year before your contract for a certain amount. Something that's probably the case already with something, but you'll see something like that. You'll see a new rule in place to kind of avoid that becoming more regular. Stephen Nicol, thoughts on the new additions to the Scotland squad? I like the fact that Xander Clark and Liam Kelly are in. There's a question about that later on, but I do think we're seeing more of a look towards the future. You've got likes of Patterson in there, Gilmer, Turnbull, Nisbet. I would probably start the majority of them going forward. I mean, I don't think O'Donnell's in the squad, but Lewis Ferguson's in as well. I don't know if Lewis Ferguson's going to be a starter for Scotland in the next qualifiers, but there's a lot to look forward to if you're a Scotland fan. I think there's a few really, really exciting players. Gilmore's probably the main one, but there's a lot to look forward to. And I think the goalkeeper situation, I would imagine Gordon will start. I think Gordon's probably going to be the number one for the next year or so, and Kelly and Clark get experience. I've always been a big fan of Liam Kelly, but I think we'll see those guys getting a bit more experience in the setup, and then they'll move on to the next level. But I'm really looking forward to seeing how Scotland adapt. The tough couple of games against the likes of Denmark as well. Obviously, a terrific European Championship campaign for them. So I am looking forward to seeing how this new Scotland squad works. And I think it's probably the right call to give Clark a new contract. You could probably criticise a couple of his decision making at the Euros, but he's probably the best man to lead this team for the next couple of years and try and get to Qatar. I think they're more than capable of reaching Qatar, the World Cup. I really do. I think they've got a hard group. If they finish second in that group, they go into the Nations League playoff. They've got a second chance of qualifying. I think they're more than capable of that. But I'm impressed with the new changes to the squad. So I hope we see a bit of an upturn for this team. Michael Buchan, with the introduction of the World Handicap system to the UK and with more plus handicap golfers than ever before, is a +2 handicap the new scratch? Yeah, it probably is. I mean, I don't know about how this handicap system fully works. I haven't read into it as much as other people, but I mean, it seems to be. I mean, there's a lot of golfers before I left the golf shop were telling me how much they went down, and I was like, they were never that before then. So obviously it's changed for the better for them. Whether it works out, I don't know. I don't know the reviews on it so far. What I've heard is it's been kind of not the best received, but I think it's like everything else. Once you get used to it, you kind of learn to live with it. So that'll be interesting to see. I don't really know how it works though, so I can't really comment much more on that. Chris Murphy, is Billy Gilmore one of the best young players to play in Europe at the moment? And if so, who would you compare him to for his age, past and present? Probably the kind of closest comparison to me is probably maybe Frankie de Jong presently. I think he's very similar in that regard. I don't think there's many players like Billy Gilmore who could have had a game that he did against England. He absolutely controlled that midfield. I think he was probably the biggest reason Scotland got something out of that game. His ball retention was brilliant that night. I think he was probably the best player in the park on both sides. Past, I think the obvious comparison is probably Barry Ferguson, because he's kind of similar idea playing. But again, it's hard to. I don't know if he's one of the best players in Europe, young wise at the moment. But I certainly think he's got potential. I think going to Norwich is maybe going to help him. I don't know if he could maybe have went to a bigger club in the Premier League. Like, I know Norwich, I don't really think they're going to do well this season. I think they're probably one of my picks to go down for the Premier League. So is he going to thrive in a team like that? I don't know, but he's certainly it was certainly the right call for him to go out and get a season on loan. You see that Chelsea team, he's probably not going to be a starter every week. At Norwich he is, so he's going to get that game time. He's going to get that Premier League experience. So I don't think he's the best player in the world right now in terms of young players. I think there's like Pedri. I would probably say Pedri probably goes into that equation, but he's certainly up there in terms of potential. I think he's got the potential to be the next star in Scottish football. I think he already is, but if you ask me, I don't think he's there yet. I think he's got a bit to find, but I've always been a huge fan of Billy Gilmore. I remember going back to when he was 15, watching him in a Victory Shield game against Northern Ireland, and he wasn't as known. I think he'd just come through at Rangers at that point, and you could see just there, just his attitude. He's got a tremendous attitude as well. I've been fortunate to meet him a couple of times, and he's always with a tremendous attitude. He just loves football, and that's one thing I like about young players. If they love the game and they think about the game non-stop, then they're usually going to thrive on it. And if they just have the right attitude, 9 times out of 10 they're going to succeed. So here's hoping Billy Gilmour makes it. I'm a huge fan of him. Tommy Griffin, with Scotland's World Cup qualifiers just around the corner, do you think this is a competition we must qualify for to keep momentum going? Could it be a case if we don't qualify, then it'll probably be another 20 years before we wait for another major tournament? No, I don't think they need to qualify. I think when you look at who's in front of them, I mean, the Euros, they didn't qualify for the last 16. There's only 13 teams make the Euro. There's only 13 teams qualify out of Europe for the World Cup. So realistically, they're not expected to qualify. So I would imagine, I think, building towards the future, I would be aiming more for, I think they're more than capable of qualifying for the World Cup, but what I would say as well is, you've got enough players there. They will make a World Cup in the next 3 World Cups. I think Scotland will qualify for at least one of them. So it's not going to be, we'll be waiting another 20 years. Nah, I don't think so. I think there's enough talent coming through, like likes of Patterson, Turnbull, Gilmour, goalkeeper as well. We've got, there's boys at Man City. I forget the boy's name at Man City, but there's a lot riding on him. I think he could be the next big goalkeeper for Scotland. You've got Kevin Nisbet, you've got Lyndon Dykes, you've got a few really, really exciting players going forward. So I don't think they must qualify for this World Cup, but I certainly think they can. But I think they'll be at least heading to a World Cup in the next 10 years or so. So yeah, I mean, but be positive, Tommy. Be positive. We could be heading to a World Cup very soon. Michelle Breeden, what is your best starting football living in the world right now? Right, I wrote this down because I looked at this question and I probably couldn't have thought of this off the top of my head, but I've went with Jan Oblak in nets. I think he's probably the best in the world right now. It was a toss-up between him and Neuer. Right back, I've got Alexander Arnold. I think his delivery, he's probably not the best defensively, but I think his delivery, I would have him in my team all day long. Left back, Alphonso Davies at Bayern Munich. I think he's outstanding. His progression's probably up there with the best in the world right now, coming from the MLS to now be one of the top players in Bayern Munich's side. So I would have him in it. Virgil van Dijk straight in centre half. Marquinhos at PSG is also there. I think he's probably became one of the most consistent players in the world in the past couple of years, particularly in the defensive position. Midfield 3, Kante straight in. I wouldn't have a team without Kante in it. Same with Kevin De Bruyne. I've put Frenkie de Jong in, but it was a toss-up between him and Kimmich, who everybody that watched the Euro show will know how big a fan I am of him. But De Jong, I think, just offers something else. I think you might see De Jong become one of the top men for Barcelona this season. I think his limelight will shine through. Obviously, with Messi no longer there, you might see likes of De Jong thriving as well, getting forward a bit more and scoring a lot more goals. Front 3, Messi and Ronaldo are in without question. And striker, I have went with Erling Haaland, who, if anybody knows me, knows that Erling Haaland is my favourite player in the world right now. Just some of his power, just his power in his shots, his finishing. He's got everything. Heading ability, touch is actually so underrated. Just everything about Haaland I love. So Erling Haaland for me would be the top player in the world right now in terms of potential, and I just think he's different class. I just think he's the best finisher in the world. So that would be my starting 11 and all right now in the world. Since doing your report, William David Neal, since doing your reports in the junior game, who has been the best side and the best player you've been to watch? Best side I've seen so far are probably the Buffs, Colin and Rangers. I watched them away to Bonington and they were really, really impressive. I think they were only 1-0 up at half time, but just when they scored the second goal in the second half, they just turned on the style. I thought they were terrific. You could argue they weren't playing against the best team in the league, that's fair enough, but they can only beat what's in front of you, and I thought they were outstanding. The best player I've seen, there's a few. I have put Del Esplin, I think that's how you pronounce his name, at Pollock. I thought he had a terrific game when I watched him against Hurlford. I would also say Daryl Meggett, who we're going to have on the show tonight on the Scottish Football Show Extra. He's just a class above at times. You just see he's so far ahead of everybody else at times in terms of intelligence. You just see it shine through. I think he's a terrific player. Who else? I really like, as a friend of the show, he's been on before, Jamie Martin at Irvine Meadow. I've watched them a couple of times. He's had a really good game in both. So Kilwinning would be the best team, and I would say Dale Esplin at Pollock, Daryl Meggett, and Jamie Martin at Meadow. They're the three players I would say were the best so far I've seen. Jeff Reid, do you think the Open Golf will ever go back to Turnberry? I don't think it will anytime soon. I think we all know why. I think because, as everybody's kind of rightly said that spoke about it, if the golf was held at Turnberry, it wouldn't be about the Open Championship. It would be about the owner. And you can look at that one or two ways as well. I know I'm not a fan of Donald Trump's politics at all. That's a different issue for a different day. But the job he's done at Turnberry is outstanding. If anybody hasn't been and seen the job he's done at Turnberry, just go and have a look. Go and play it. If you've got an opportunity to play it, snap, bite the guy's hand off. Whoever's taking you, take it, because it is one of the best courses in the world. But the problem you've got is it wouldn't be about the Open Championship. It would be about, and even if Donald Trump was, I would imagine Trump would go to that. If it was at Turnberry, you wouldn't be able to focus on the golf. It would be about Donald Trump. And after the incident at the start of the year and what his allegations have been and things like that, you can't do that to the Open Championship. It's too prestigious. You can't make it about Donald Trump. I know the PGA in America have followed suit. I think next year's PGA was meant to be held at his golf course in New York. I think that's obviously changed now, and it's obviously for the same reason. It's a shame because everybody knows, I mean, especially when you're fiercer like me, Turnberry's, when the Opens at Turnberry, I'm there. I go I mean, 2009 I was at Turnberry. I was probably my favourite Open I've been to. It was just an amazing day, an amazing week. I was at it. I was a year Tom Watson nearly won it. But the course is outstanding. So I think the pros will probably feel that a lot more, because I think they all want to play Turnberry, but you can't open it up to a media circus, which is what it would be. But I hope something gets done about it. I know it's probably not going to happen anytime soon, but I would love to see the Open back at Turnberry. It's probably my favourite course in the Open rota, so it would be good to see that back at Turnberry, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. Paul Gordon, how have you found your first year doing SM Media, and what has been the best part of it? I found it amazing. It's 90% positive, 10% negative. Obviously, you get a lot of negative feedback and things like that, but the positives far outweigh that. I've kind of learned that in the past few days when I've been kind of thinking about it a lot more. The best part about it for me has been the ability to meet a lot of new people. I mean, there's a lot of people now I talk to that I didn't talk to a year ago who I've got to know and become friends with. That's a really good part for me. The best part about it as well is talking to a lot of people in different walks of life. Like you're talking to footballers, golfers, wrestlers and things like that. You're talking to people, I mean, the mental health thing, I know that's probably going to be coming back soon. I've just been kind of working out how to do that show. That's a difficult show for me to do, because I don't really know if it's the sort of thing I should be hosting. I think there's probably better people out there that would do a better job of it. I don't know about that. That's again something for me to think about, but I absolutely love talking to people. About their stories as well. I love hearing stories about things. I love doing the podcasts and things like that. It's a lot. I love having a laugh. I love what I like about it is what pleases me about the channel so far is the amount of people who say it's part of my week now. Like doing the shows, if they're, I listen to your shows every week, things like that. That's a huge positive for me to hear. I love things like that. But I've loved doing it. It's going to be a bit weird in the next few months, obviously, juggling a media channel, a job, and a new baby. So that's going to be really interesting to see how I manage to juggle it all. But right now, I'm loving it. It's a lot of it has been it's stressful. I think everybody that does kind of media channels will agree with that. It's a stressful thing to do, but it's finding the time. And right now, I'm trying to find the time as much as possible. But I'm absolutely loving doing it. I can't believe it's been a year already, but hopefully we can build on that and reach to the next level. Obviously, maybe advertising for sponsors and things like that. That's the kind of next step we want to go down. But yeah, bringing out new shows as well. And I've said it's SME is an open door. If you want to come on and do a show on your own, you want to be part of anything, then send me a message. We'll see. We'll take it from there. We'll see what we can do. It's an open door. I want to give people opportunities to come on shows and chat and things like that. At the end of the day, that's what we're doing. I'm not the first person to say, oh, we need to be set a certain way. I want people to just come on and have a laugh and talk about things that they want to talk about. That's what the channel's for. I know it says SM Media, but it's called SM Media because I couldn't think of a better name for it. If you can think of a better name, then all means send it over. But that's the way it is now. It's going to be SM Media for as long as I probably want it to be. But it's definitely going for. There's a lot planned. I keep saying that there's a lot planned. There's going to be a lot more stuff happening over the next few months. So yeah, it's been amazing. I've absolutely loved doing it, and long may it continue. Robbie Henderson is the new West of Scotland set up a better or worse standard than the previous junior leagues? I think it has to be better. I think right now, the standard probably won't be as good because there's probably teams in it that probably shouldn't be at the top league. That's maybe a bit disrespectful. I don't mean it to be disrespectful, but I think next year you will see a lot more changes when it comes to kind of 16-team leagues and things like that. I think you'll see a lot more competitiveness. But I think it's a good setup. I think it's the absolute right thing to do, going to that next level. So yeah, I'm hoping that the West of Scotland becomes, in the next 2 or 3 years, a really, really established league. I think they're doing an excellent job so far. I think, as always, with any new project, it could be better. But again, that's for the next few years to work out how they do that. Tone F Photography, do you think we need changes at grassroots level of Scottish football to benefit the national team in years to come? Yeah, absolutely. I think there's got to be more done. I think you've got to get people playing more football. I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, you see it, for example, you drive by like public parks. I know when I was young, there was a lot of people playing in public parks. You don't see that enough now. I think that's because in terms of facilities, I think they're slowly beginning to change that. I think you're seeing a lot more different things. But I think once we get out of COVID and once we get back to a sense of normality, I think there will be a lot more done, because I think a lot of more people in the past year have been coming up with ideas. I know, and we spoke about it in the show, what can be done differently. But I think in the next year, you might see a lot more progression. I think the biggest thing for me is, and I've said this for years, and people have agreed with me and disagreed with me, there needs to be a better level of coach. And that's not, I know right now it's, in terms of time and all that, it's tough to find. But I think you only get better at football if you're getting coached by people who know what they're talking about. I mean, I'm not saying I was a terrific football player when I was young, far from it, but I didn't really feel as if the coaches I had really had that experience in game, and that's, I'm maybe ashamed to say that. I don't mean any disrespect by it, but I think if you're getting coached and given proper advice and life lessons more than anything, then you will feel it. You will feel the benefit of that, and I think that's one thing we need to see going forward, and particularly in football, particularly at a young age. Juddy, if you had a dinner party and could have 3 sports persons attending, dead or alive, who would they be and why? Tiger Woods would be straight in. Tiger Woods, best sportsman of all time, most. Michael Jordan would be the exact same. The 2 most competitive freaks of nature in sports history. That's exactly why they're straight in. Plus, the stories would be amazing. The Last Dance as well. I would urge anybody to, if you want to know why Michael Jordan's in there, watch that documentary series and you'll find out why. Tiger Woods as well. Just the intensity of Tiger Woods when he was. I grew up with Tiger Woods playing golf at the top level, and that's why he's in my dinner for 3. Michael Schumacher would probably be the 3rd one. I'm a huge fan of him. I, again, like Tiger and Michael Jordan, grew up with them dominating their sport. So they 3 would be straight in for me. Ayrshire Gers, do you think junior football will now die in this format? As a former manager in boys' club, Sunday League, amateur and junior, I question the future. I was first-hand at seeing how hard to maintain clubs financially and with players. I think that's the purpose of the new West of Scotland system, is to kill the idea of junior. I think they wanted to get away from that name. I've spoke to a few clubs, and that's why they did it. They want to get away from the junior and progress to the next level. That's why they're doing it. I like the fact they're keeping the Junior Cup to do that. I think that you still want that wee bit of remembering your roots and things like that. So I hope the clubs that have committed to the Junior Cup this year, they continue to do it for the next few years. I know the likes of Talbot and things like that, they will probably do it because of their historic success in that tournament. So I think that's a plan with that. I think it's to get away from junior. So we'll see likes of more clubs progress, but I think they'll remember their roots. I mean, a lot of clubs have still committed to the Junior Cup and things like that. So, yeah, I think it was the right time as well, because I think like clubs like Talbot and Clydebank and Pollock and things like that, they wanted to progress up the leagues. They see there's clubs. I mean, you look at Celtic Hearts being the perfect example. Celtic Hearts have done it. Why can't they? So that's why I think they've done it. So yeah, I think that will be the reason it's done, but they're still remembering their roots, which is a good thing. Alistair Johnson, when watching women's football, is it refreshing to see hardly any diving and play acting? Do you think the men's game should learn from them? Refs get tougher, or will the women adopt the same attitude as the men? I hope not. I think it's probably going to be tough to say this, but I think with men's football, it's done mainly for show with the kind of play acting and things like that. I think you see that now more often than not. But the women's football right now, the women's football landscape looks amazing. I think there's a lot more coverage coming its way. I really hope they don't adopt the same attitude and behaviours. I don't think they will. I think they know what they're doing. They're sticking to their guns, which I really, really think is the right way forward. I hope to see women's football getting more coverage going forward, because it deserves it. I think as well, being a fan of it for so long, I think it's the right time for the Scotland women's team to be playing at Hampden. I think it's the right time for that progression to take place. It's been progressing over the years, and I think now's the right time for it to happen. So yeah, I really hope they continue to do what they're doing, because they're hitting it out of the park every chance they get. They've been outstanding in the past few years, and long may it continue. Kyle Gunn, with Liam Kelly and Xander Clark been named in the Scotland squad alongside Craig Gordon, are we seeing a change of regular national keeper with no Marshall or McGregor anymore? I still think Gordon will play. I think Gordon's probably the best keeper out of the three, but you've got the likes of Liam Kelly, who I've spoke about earlier on in the show. I think he's got the potential to be the next number one. I've always been a fan of him, even when he was at Rangers. You could see he had that ability he had a really good time at Motherwell as well. He's obviously went there permanently, but he was at Livingston for a while. He had an outstanding game against Celtic, so I think he could potentially be the next number one. So I would say Liam Kelly could be the next number one. Xander Clark's a terrific addition as well. You've got three really good goalkeepers, one who's coming to the end of his career but can still do a really good job, and two for the future. Liam Kelly and Xander Clark will be about for a while to come. And obviously you've got the likes of John McLaughlin as well, obviously not there due to COVID, but Robbie McCrory, he's getting a terrific opportunity this week to show what he can do. It's probably not the best circumstances for him to take that opportunity, but again, he's got ability. There's a lot of goalkeepers. I keep forgetting the guy's name at Man City, who's in the tip of my tongue, but I've been watching him at Man City's youth games, and he looks to be a real exciting prospect. I think it's Kieran something. Somebody can let me know in the comments, but I would say he's a really, really interesting future. But I've always grown up with good goalkeepers. Alan McGregor, Craig Gordon. I think we need to see more goalkeepers coming through. So yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing the next steps for the Scotland national team when it comes to the number one shirt. Miveline, what is stopping the local councils leaving up the goalpost during the summer to let the kids, whoever playing where the weather is good, and giving them somewhere to go? As I say, I think you will see that more often. I don't think the councils have done enough over the past 10, 15 years to really get footballers playing, particularly at young age. I think we need to see more of it. Again, that's something I've always said. Why are they taking the nets down? Give players a chance, give youngsters a chance to play football. Because at the end of the day, and I don't know people like me, but when you were 5 and 6 years old and playing a goal net, you were imagining you were playing at Wembley and things like that. You imagine you were scoring a winner at Hampden. Like, that's good for an imagination for a youngster. Like, when you see youngsters now and they're not playing football, they're in playing football on the computer. They're probably doing the same thing, but nothing beats playing, like having a ball at your feet and playing, because that's the best way you gain experience and gain talent, gain ability, because it starts, obviously, there's a lot been done for kind of mini kickers and things like that, and I think that they're doing really good jobs, but nothing beats playing outside with the sun in your back when you're a young boy, young girl, playing in a net, because you're imagining you're in the biggest stadiums in the world, and if you've got an imagination, then you should be allowed to thrive on it. So hopefully that can change in the next few years. Colin Watt, on the basis of the success of the League of Ireland teams in Europe over recent years, Do you think it's a model Scottish football should adopt for summer football, or is the Conference League the boost the league needs to help close the financial gap? I don't see summer football happening. It's probably a good idea. I would be for or against it. I've not really thought about it, but the Conference League, it's obviously given the likes of St Johnstone and Aberdeen tonight a chance to reach a European competition. I mean, St Johnstone never done it. Aberdeen done it, I think it was 13 years ago. I think they qualified for the UEFA Cup. That's going to give them more of a chance to gain European experience. Summer football, I don't know if it would work in Scotland because you've got, I think there's nothing, I think the best thing about football for me is in Scotland is you've got the winter. I mean, if you didn't have the football in the winter, what would you be doing? You're in the house, you're not doing much, you can't go out and walk and things like that. Football's on during the winter. It's probably, I would always be an advocate for winter football, but if they've done a trial run or something, I wouldn't be against that either, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. Conference League I'm a fan of. I don't think it'll boost the financial aspect. I don't think you're getting a lot of money for qualifying for it, but it gives those teams European experience and gives them an option. If you went out of the Europa League, that was you. Now that's not the case. I mean, you could realistically have four Scottish teams qualifying for a European competition tonight. That's a massive achievement. So I hope they all do it. I hope the Conference League gives them the opportunity to gain European experience. But when it comes to Summer League, I don't think that will happen anytime soon. Scottish Wrestling Network, who would be your top 5 wrestlers you would love to interview? CM Punk would be one of them. Undertaker, Stone Cold Steve Austin, John Cena, and 5th, Jim Cornette. Jim Cornette's a unbelievable piece of entertainment on YouTube and things like that. Terrific mind for the wrestling business as well, but listen to him and talking about anything, and it's entertaining. But yeah, those would be my 5. Andy Jackson, what is the perception of the Colts experiment so far in the Lowland League amongst the other clubs in the division? I think it must be. I haven't spoke to many people involved in the Lowland League about it, but it seems to be a positive idea. The only thing that bothers me about it is I think Rangers and Celtic will run away with the league, and if the teams get promoted, then they're going to be finishing 3rd, because obviously Rangers and Celtic can't get promoted from that league. I think the clubs will be enjoying once we get back to full crowds, if they'll be getting potentially full houses. If Rangers and Celtic aren't playing during the day and that the B team's on it at that time, I think a lot of Rangers and Celtic fans will be going to watch them. So the clubs will be making money doing it. So I think that'll be a positive side of it. Competitiveness, I don't know. I haven't spoken to enough people about it to get a definitive answer, but I can't see it doing any harm. I was an advocate for bringing back the reserve league, because I think you get better playing with older people. I think you gain more experience, you gain more toughness, you gain a lot more aspects of the game while doing that. So I think it will be a positive thing. I don't know if it'll be a long-term thing, but if it is, then I'm not against it. So I think the clubs will probably be happy because they'll be making a bit of money out of it. Chris Logan, given the context of clubs who have struggled to get out the Scottish Championship in the first attempt, how convincing or otherwise do you expect Kilmarnock to perform and gain promotion? I think they will shoot up this season. I think they're the best team in the league. I think they've done the best business. I think bringing in the likes of Ewan Murray, Blair Alston, the guy Scott Robinson that was at Livingston, those are really good players. They've done well. Tommy Wright's a man who's been there and done it. He's kept St Johnstone in the league for so long. He knows how to do it. And Kilmarnock should be in the top league. I think it was probably a lesson for them how bad it got last season. I don't think they'll want to be there again. So I think they will shoot back up. I think they've got the resources to do it. I think they've got a tremendous fan base as well. They've got a fan base who are Premier League. They want to be at that top level. I think a lot of them have stuck by. I think the worry for a lot of the club was last season that a lot of the fans would get bored of playing in the Championship. I don't think that's the case. I spoke to Wilson about it. Wilson says the crowds are going to go up. So yeah, I mean, I do expect them to go back up. I think they're good enough. I think they'll be the best team in the league. So I would imagine they are going to be back in the Premiership next season. James Wallace, do the bigger junior clubs really want to step up through the pyramid? The local games would go away and some of those clubs might be lost. That's one way of looking at it. I think there's potentially clubs who will miss that side of it, but again, they want to go to that next level. I mean, you look at likes of Auchinleck, Glenafton, Cumnock, particularly clubs kind of round about where I'm from and things like that, they love the aspect of playing each other, but they also want to make a progression. They've had it for so long. They've played each other every year for years. They want to see what the next level is, and that's why this West of Scotland thing's come about, and I think it's a good thing. They're getting an opportunity to climb through the leagues. They'll still be playing each other for the next couple of years unless kind of one of them go up. But I don't think they'll lose that side of it, because obviously you're going to be playing each other in cups and things like that. You're going to have other opportunities to play against other teams that you've been about for so long. But it's time to see what that next step is, and I think that's the reasoning behind it. So I think a lot of the clubs will want to do it. I don't imagine they'll have signed up for it otherwise, but that's my opinion. I think they all want to see where the next level is. Daniel Forbes, where the Celtic still need to strengthen, I would say they definitely need another centre-back, at least another centre-back. I know they've signed Starfelt and obviously Julian's injured, but I think they need a bit more strength and depth in that position. If one of them were to be injured, then they're relying on young players. And I'm not saying these young players aren't going to go on and have good careers at the club, but I think they need a bit more strength and depth there. Left back, I would say Greg Taylor is a decent enough player. I just don't think he's reliable enough to be that consistent number one. I think he needs a bit of competition. The ball and goalie incidents failed. Belt and ball and goalie incident just didn't work out. So I'm amazed he's actually still there. But I think they need somebody else at left back. I wouldn't be surprised if they sign another left back before the end of the window. Strikers, a position that worries me. I think they're fine in midfield. I think they've obviously done pretty well to. Obviously, if Christie was to go, I think they would need another midfielder. But the wingers, I would say maybe another left winger. I think obviously they've signed Furuhashi, but they don't have a lot of depth in that position. But I would say they're pretty much fine in midfield. If Edouard was to go, you're left with Albion Ayeti and Lee Griffiths, and I know there's probably going to be another striker coming in this week, but if I would be surprised if Edouard doesn't leave before the end of the window. So I think they need at least two strikers. I think they need a replacement for Edouard, and they need a new striker anyway, because I don't think you can rely on Ayeti and Griffiths. Certainly not Griffiths right now, because obviously he's not the most popular fella at Celtic Park at the moment. But also, if you could rely on Lee Griffiths, I don't think there would be an issue with him getting a year's contract. I did see there was a bit of up and down about that whole decision, but how many times have we said a fit and healthy Lee Griffiths is the best striker in the league? The problem with that is we've said that for too long. He's not shown that he's fit and healthy, and Celtic can't rely on him then. So I would say they need at least two strikers before the end of the window. Brian Denning, what is the thing you love about football most and least? I love the fact that you can invest in something, and it determines your mood as well. Like whoever you support, I love the fact that it just dictates everything about you. If your team loses, then that's you. If your team wins, then you're high for a couple of days. If they lose, you're low. The least thing about football I love is I don't really dislike much about football. I dislike sometimes the nonsense you get about like how it becomes other than football. It becomes like, I don't know. That's maybe I don't really know how to answer that question, because there's not a lot of dislike about football. I dislike like silly decisions and things like that. I dislike the way the kind of VAR and things like that's going. I don't think it's been used correctly. That's the thing that's annoying me. I don't think you can watch a game of football now, particularly in England, and when a goal goes in, the first thing you're thinking of is, how can this be disallowed? So that would be the thing I dislike the least about football. I love as much as everything about football. There's not a lot of things I dislike about it. So yeah, that's pretty much that question. I love football. I love football. I can talk about football until I go to wake up to go to sleep. That's why I started this, so I could have a platform to talk about football and get people I know to talk about football with me. So that's football for me. Ori Blue, is sectarianism worse today than 60 years ago? No, I don't think it is. Now, again, I might be totally wrong, but I don't remember. I wasn't around 60 years ago, so I couldn't necessarily totally answer that question. But all I know is 60 years ago, if you were Roman Catholic, you might not have got a job for that. I don't think that's the case now. I think vice versa. When it comes to the rivalry, I don't think the sectarianism side is bad. I think the rivalry is more personal than it's been, but I think that's down to other factors, like kind of Rangers been out of the leagues for a while, and it's just became a bit more poisonous in that regard. But I don't think that's down to sectarianism. I do think it's still a problem. I think we obviously see it's still, people do still sing the songs, people do still call people sectarian names. I don't think that'll ever go away. I don't think that'll ever be properly eradicated that it should have been. If it was, it'd have been eradicated a long time ago. But it's nowhere near as bad as it was 60 years ago, in my opinion. I've read a few historians on it, and they've said the exact same thing, that it's pretty much out of date now in Scotland. You don't see it as much. But I mean, 60 years ago, you were probably going down the street in certain cases and being slashed and things like that for being one-sided religion. I'm not a religious person, so I don't know I know enough about it. I know obviously reading things like that, but I don't necessarily know enough about like how it affects people personally, because it's not, not that I don't care about it, but I'm not religious. I don't take things like that to heart. So no, I don't think it's as bad as it was 6 years ago for the reasons I've said. I don't think you would not get a job anymore because you're one side of the coin, as I say. So that way it's changed. It might be the same in other cases. I don't know, but I don't think it is. I think society's changed as a whole. In that regard, you still see the nonsense songs and things like that. I think what strikes me about that is a lot of people sing those songs and don't know what they're singing about. I remember asking people about that when I was hearing people singing the songs, and I would ask myself and a few other people would ask them, do you know what that song means? And they would go, nah, I just like singing it. And I'm like, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's the side of it we've all seen. We are a society right now where we don't know what we're singing about. And I think that's going to be the same for a long, long time. I think generations will hear the songs and copy them and not have a clue what they're singing about. So no, I don't think it's as worse as it was 6 years ago. Scott K, can you see a big club like Barcelona going bust because of the wage bill, etc.? And should there be a salary cap for the big clubs? I wouldn't be surprised if. So I don't think they'll go bust, but I think the big problem with the likes of Barcelona and Real Madrid is they don't have that government money that they were getting in recent years because of obviously the pandemic and things like that. I don't think that's the case now, but I think there probably should be a salary cap. I think salaries just went out of control. Again, is that not what financial fair play was meant to be for? Like, I don't know. I don't really think UEFA know how financial fair play works. So, again, they need to do something, because Barcelona and Real Madrid, particular, I mean, Inter Milan as well. Inter Milan are in serious trouble. But these clubs are institutions. They should rely on government bailouts. That's the reason they're struggling right now, is because that money isn't there, because obviously we're in a pandemic. That money's going towards better equipment, going towards PPE and food and things like that, where it should be going. But I think we will see something in the next couple of years, because I don't think the likes of, that's obviously why the Super League was created, because these clubs need money, and that was an easy option for them. So I think with that being kind of dead in the water, I think they'll need to do something, because you could see some really, really dark times for these clubs in the next few years than what they're in just now. Ryan Dackle, what do you think of the recent Scotland squad? I've answered that already. I think it's a welcome addition with likes of the goalkeepers in. Obviously Ferguson's there as well. A lot more youth in the team. So yeah, that would be probably my answer to that. Kevin McGrory, do you feel there should be more coverage of the amateur game in terms of people getting valuable experience within media roles? Yeah, I mean, the amateur game should be covered more. I think we're trying to do that. We'll try to do it with Ayrshire. The problem we've got was if we had the people and the resources, we'd be covering every league in the amateur football in Scotland, but we just don't have the time and the resources and the people right now. So yeah, more people should be getting experience to do it. I think as well, like, you think Ayrshire, I'm using Ayrshire as an example, but I've been astonished by how many people have been like saying, "Oh, well done in doing covering the amateurs. It's been badly needed." I've been wanting to do it for years. I think I've came from that opinion that there's not enough coverage on it. You get a wee bit in the Ayrshire Post, and obviously the different papers around about Ayrshire, but that's really it. We hopefully can change that. We hopefully, we're obviously adding in match reports as well. You're not going to find out in the paper unless they really write about it, who scores the goals. That's the first time we've built a good few relationships with different clubs around the league. So hopefully we can add more to that. But yeah, I think there should be more coverage in the amateur game, particularly outside of Ayrshire, because I think there's plenty more people like us who can do it. So hopefully they can do that as well. James Taylor, what's your thoughts on the Sins deal? Do you think Scottish football is being undervalued? This is an interesting one, because I do think the Scottish Football League needed a sponsor. I don't think they've got the best deal. I think they've took a really low ball offer from this company. I mean, we've seen how much they've given Tottenham Hotspur. And I think this deal could be a really bad one for the league. And I'm not saying they do need a sponsor. The clubs do need a sponsor. But already we're seeing the kind of different sides of this, because obviously Rangers and the SPFL are now at it over this Sins deal. I will explain what I know on that, but again, it's obviously a pending court case. I'm not going to go too much into it. There is obviously a conflict of interest between Sins, who are a car company, and Parts of Hamilton, who obviously the chairman of Rangers is involved in Parts of Hamilton. So there's obviously a conflict of interest there. So it's a difficult one to talk about, because I don't want to go too much into it for fear of being sued or whatever. But it's a difficult deal. It's better than having no deal, which they've had for the past 3 years. They haven't had a sponsor, which I think is laughable, and shows, I think, there needs to be serious questions put to these people for not doing that. They've got a sponsor. Sins is obviously a big company. They're now kind of one of the leaders in kind of second-hand cars and things like that. I don't really know enough about them. I just know that Ryland Clark does their ads. That's as much as I know about Sins and what they do. But again, they should be appealing. They've got one of the biggest games in world football in the league, so they surely should be able to get a better deal than what they've got. But again, we'll see how it goes. But I do think they've been undervalued. Yeah, I don't think they're pushing enough to get a better deal out of it. I think they're just taking the first deal that comes to them. Craig Smith, should more be done by the government to improve grassroots football, or is it the responsibility of Premier clubs to improve our future stars? As similar population countries seem to be pulling away from us quality-wise, I think that's all down to coaching. I think that's simple. I always think, I'll add, James Leach has got a similar question as well. Do you think professional clubs should send their coaches out to local community teams to assist the volunteer coaches? I've always said that. You need proper coaches with good experience to be able to give these young kids the ability to move forward and progress in football. I spent almost my first experience with football was a coaching school, and there was a lot of really kind of experienced players at that, and see the stories they were telling you and what you were learning from them. It made you feel so good and made you wanted to, I want to be like him, I want to be like her, I want to be. That's what you want. As I say about imagination, I've got a very, very big imagination. I would pretend I was against these people. I pretend I was playing in stadiums. I think a lot of it's too, what's the word I'm looking for here? It's too micromanaged. I think there's a lot. I think some coaches are coaching people out of football just by overcomplicating it. It's simple. It's simple. Keep it simple. Keep it fun. That's the thing. Keep it fun. Young kids want to enjoy themselves. They don't want to be micromanaged at 9, 10-year-old, because they're just going to fall out of love with it. And I think that's what you've seen in the past 10, 15 years. I know that's how I felt. I felt as if it was just, this isn't fun. It isn't fun to play football in this regard. So, not that I'm saying I would have went on and had a football career. I'm not saying that at all. But I lost a lot of interest for playing football because I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy the coaching. I didn't enjoy how it felt at times like a pals act. Like, guys would only be there because of who their dad was and things like that. That should be eradicated from the game. You need coaches who know the game and don't have a personal interest in that. They obviously have a personal interest, but they're not playing a player just because of who their son is and things like that. Like, that's not the way football. You need the best players should be allowed to flourish, and they should be coached properly. And I think the grassroots, it needs to be from the start. You need to build these youngsters to have really, really fondness for football. Obviously, they'll watch it and they'll want to be Lionel Messi. They'll want to be Cristiano Ronaldo. They need coaching to get there. I'm not saying they're going to get there, but they need to be coached. You need coaching. You need people who know what they're talking about. You don't just need guys who who only do it because they've got a bit of free time. That's, again, I think that's why we've been failing in the past 10, 15 years. You need to see a lot of people now who know the game, know the future of football, know where football is going to go. Now, obviously, you get exceptions. You get guys who didn't necessarily have great playing careers, but are really good coaches. I mean, I know a few who are that, and they're brilliant coaches, but they have that. They've had that experience. There's guys that used to coach me at football who never kicked a ball in their lives, and that. How can you learn from that? And I'm not saying that's difficult, but 9 times out of 10, you need to have coaches who know the game and know the positives and negatives, who've had personal experiences and things like that, because that's how you get better. That's how you get better. That's how we need to move forward as a country. We need to see more players who have had good coaches. And I think we're seeing that now. I think there's a lot of, you look at the clubs, the kind of big clubs, there's a lot of players who've been there, a lot of guys who've had really good careers in football and coaching and that, and they've moved into being part of the big clubs, and they're starting from they're getting people in from a young level, and that's the way it should be. I think that's the best thing to do it. And obviously, you don't have the days of YTS, which a lot of people I've spoke to say it was the best time in their lives. Those days are over. You need to find the next step. Obviously, if it's pro youth or whatever, if it's another thing, you need to get these guys into football at a young age, and you need to give them personal advice. You need to have them enjoying it, because that's the only way they're going to succeed. That's the only way you're going to find the next Barry Ferguson, Paul Lambert, Andy Robertson, Billy Gilmour as well. They always said when they were young, they learned from good coaches. They learned from coaches who knew the game, knew and made it fun. I'm not saying it becomes a carry on, but you need to, if you're going to somewhere and you're not enjoying it, you're going to not put the effort in. And that's where the coaches and the conveners and things like that, they need to make sure that football becomes that. It becomes enjoyable. Like, if you've got a young kid, I would love to. If down the line, if my kid was going to football, but he was saying I wasn't enjoying it, or he or she was saying I'm not enjoying it, then you'd be like, oh well, let's not do that then. But if they enjoy it, they want to get better at it. So let's try that. I'm not the expert, but I would say that with my opinion is, make sure the kids enjoy it, and make sure you give them every bit of experience and advice you can give them, and help them enjoy playing football, because that's where we're all at. And that will do us for the first episode of the question session right here on SM Media. Thank you very much to everyone who sent a question in. I hope I've answered every question that came through. We hope to be doing this show more often in the future. So if you've enjoyed the show, please give it a like and a share. As well as that, next time we're doing this show, please send questions in. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. We'll see you soon. Cheers.